Okay, is the screen visible, Mary?
Yes.
Okay, so we are on the learning outcome 2, which is understanding the development of communication and language. So this is the indicative content, which includes components of language, milestones from birth to 5 years, then birth to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 18, and so on. So let's get on to the key terminology first. So phonology. Phonology is the study of sounds in language, which also includes how sounds are produced, combined, and recognized. For example, how you like differentiate between bat and pat. It's the study of sounds, okay? And semantics essentially is the meaning of words and sentences, which helps children understand and use vocabulary correctly. So basically, semantic means meaning of words and sentences. Grammar, of course, you know, it's the rules for combining words into sentences. It includes two things, which is morphology, which is how you form words, and then syntax, it means how you structure sentences. Okay?
Yes.
And the next is pragmatics, which is the social use of language, such as knowing how to take turns in conversation, use tone, and adjust speech depending on the situation. It's more like understanding social cues and extra things that you know, knowing about your surroundings, how you need to respond to people. If someone is being sarcastic, that also comes in pragmatism. Okay. The next
Yes.
is object permanence, which is the understanding that objects still exist even when they cannot be seen or heard. This supports early communication skills, for example, playing peekaboo. Now, what it means is, do you have any idea about object permanence by any chance?
Yeah, maybe, I mean, I'm not sure, but I think something like, when you do a puppet show, you use puppets, but of course they cannot say or move, but we do the movements and we use um, our mouth to speak and stuff. So maybe that's also comes into object permanence.
Okay. So, what object permanence exactly means is, for example, if you would have seen in fans of kids, okay, if you show them a toy and hide it under the blanket, kids who are very young, they would think that the toy has vanished. It does not exist now. They might forget about it and they start feeling okay, it does not exist, it has lost. But when they grow up, they realize if you hide the toy inside the blanket after showing them, they would realize that, okay, the toy exists, but it's under the blanket. That's object permanence, that the object still exists even if you cannot see or hear it. Okay?
Okay.
So next is nonverbal communication, communicating through gestures, facial expressions, eye contact, and body language, often before or alongside spoken language. So nonverbal is like, of course, you know that nonverbal communication is nonverbal cues that you do alongside verbal communication. It's nonverbal and verbal communication both make what is known as communication in general. So let's watch YouTube video first and share my screen then.
Sure. We only do reading on Saturday and then writing we can schedule along with SFC. So can you see my screen right now? Can you not see the white?
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete AI. Come back to this video, watch it a couple times. It's probably good enough. Hope you didn't mind my awful voice.
Can you see anything, Mary?
I can see your screen, but yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah, just explain it to you that I was just writing so that I could get a little smart.
Yeah.
So I just explain.
What's up, everybody?
Can you hear the sound though?
What if I told you that I could teach you
Yes.
Okay.
developmental milestones in under 5 minutes? Would you believe me, or would you insist? No, I cannot learn that in under 5 minutes. I'm not studying that. I'm not going to learn that for the test because it's just too much information for me to know. Well, let me prove you wrong. Before I get into today's video, please consider clicking the join button. You can find that join button underneath any video on my channel. It's also the first link in the description of any video on my channel. And when you click that link, you'll sign up to be a Dirty Medicine member, where you'll pay $4.99 a month in financial support of my channel. I really appreciate your consideration. Now let's get into today's video. So developmental milestones, the worst topics to study without question for step 1 and level 1, but I'm going to teach it to you in under 5 minutes. So let's get started. So with all of these milestones, you need to know what's happening at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. All right, so we'll start with language. At 2 months old, babies can coo. At 4 months old, they can laugh. At 6 months old, they babble. At 9 months old, they can say mama or dada. And when they're 1 year old, they know at least one word. So this is really easy to remember because for language, you just look at the number of letters in each of these milestones. So at 2 months old, they coo, C-O, that's got 2 letters. At 4 months old, they laugh, they say ha ha, that's got 4 letters. At 6 months old, they babble, babble has 6 letters. At 9 months old, they can say mommy, dada, that's got a total of 9 letters. And when they're 1 year old, they can say 1 or more words. Done. Gross motor. At 2 months old, they can raise their head. At 4 months old, they can roll over. At 6 months old, they can sit up. At 9 months old, they can crawl. And at 12 months old, they can walk. Now, the way that we're going to memorize this is with a Dirty Medicine song. Now, it's been a very long time since I've sung a song for you guys, and I would like to apologize for my absolutely terrible, awful, disgusting voice. But to the tune of Happy Birthday, here we go. 2 months old, raise your head. 4 months old, roll over, Fred. 6 months sit up. 9 months crawl. 12 months walk, and that's all. How easy is that? Let's say it one more time, just to really get it into your memory. 2 months old, raise your head. 4 months old, roll over, Fred. 6 months sit up. 9 months crawl. 12 months walk, and that's all done. Social. At 2 months old, they can twinkle, which means to smile. At 4 months old, they can focus on which direction sound is coming from, so they orient the sound. At 6 months old, they have stranger anxiety. At 9 months old, they respond to their name. And at 12 months old, they respond to commands. So this is really easy to remember because you look at the first letter in each of these milestones. So at 2 months, they twinkle. At 4 months, they focus. At 6 months, stranger. At 9 months, name. And at 12 months, they can be told commands. Now, I don't have a great mnemonic to remember the fine motor skills, but this is 75% of what you need to know. And I've just taught you that in under 5 minutes. So come back to this video, watch it a couple times, which is probably good enough. Hope you didn't mind my awful voice. Good luck. Keep up the good work.
Does that sound good?
Okay, let's get back to the PPT.
In this
then.
video, we'll talk about the different childhood exanthems, which is a fancy way of saying rashes that spread throughout the body. On your exam, this will be a pediatrics type question. And this is very challenging for most students because unfortunately, a lot of these rashes look very, very similar.
Sorry, just moving on. Yeah, you can see the screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so in this learning outcome, we first understand how the development of communication and language happens in children, which is very essential, and because it lays the foundation for their social, emotional, and cognitive growth. The language development occurs in stages, as we just saw in the video. It is supported by various environmental and biological factors, and it is crucial for children's ability to do what? To express themselves, to understand others, and form social relationships. So they can express themselves, they can understand others, and they can form social relationships by doing these things. So here's an outline of the key concepts. So the key areas in communication and language development. First is the stages of communication and language development. So the first stage would be, of course, pre-linguistic stage, which is 0 to 12 months, up to 1 year. So communication happens through crying, cooing, and babbling. And infants use these sounds to express their needs and they form attachments. This is the stage where they start forming attachments. And during this stage also they start recognizing sounds and familiarize themselves to voices, and they begin to mimic sounds. Okay, it's their way of communicating. Then the first words start happening. It's from 12 to 18 months. So children begin using single words to label objects, people, and basic needs. So this stage involves learning words that are meaningful in their daily lives, and vocabulary growth is rapid. That's like the way they start learning words like water, car, TV, food. That's how they start labeling objects, or like mama, objects, people, and their basic needs. And this is when single words they start coming in. So the two-word stage starts from 1.5 to 2 years. So at this point, children start combining two words to form basic sentences, like want cookie. These combinations help children express their ideas and desires more clearly. And then the early sentences, which is from 2 to 3 years, children start forming simple sentences and gradually expand their vocabulary. Now they begin to use grammar, such as plural forms and verb tenses, to create more complex ideas. So it goes in an order. First, you'll see they're crying, they're going, they're babbling, they're just making sounds. Then they start with one word, then they start with two words, and then they start forming simple sentences and where grammar kicks in. And after like 3+ years, they start forming complex sentences. And then children can use language to explain, question, and narrate. They also develop an understanding of abstract language concepts, which are essential for school readiness. Now they can form complex sentences and also have the abstract language concepts, wherein they can actually talk abstractly. They don't need something in particular or something very momentarily to show them, or some object to show them. They can actually talk abstract now. Second is the factors influencing communication and language development. So, of course, biological, these are the common factors that you can see everywhere you talk something about in psychology. Biological, environmental, social, and cultural. Social cultural is something that goes hand in hand, but we do talk about them separately sometimes as well. So biological factors would be genetic predisposition, brain development, and hearing ability. They play a crucial role in language acquisition. So children with certain conditions such as hearing impairments or speech disorders might experience delays in language development. So biological factors, understand. Now then environmental factors. Now exposure to language, like how's the interaction going on with the caregiver and how accessible is a language-rich environment, they impact language learning. Children who are exposed to more words and complex sentences, might be through conversation, storytelling, or reading, these children tend to develop stronger language skills. That's why you must have seen, children are encouraged to read more books, or their parents are encouraged to, give them more exposure to language, to read books, and to intelligent storytelling, so that children can learn, they can have better language skills. The social interactions now. So social interaction is fundamental to language development. Why? Because children learn language through meaningful exchanges with caregivers and peers. Positive reinforcement and opportunities to practice language skills through play also support development. Now they also get a chance to learn language through play. Now they enjoy something like that, and that's how it's positively reinforced that learning language is also like happening. As for the cultural influences, the language is spoken at home, family traditions, and cultural expectations affect children's language and communication style, which can include gestures, body language, and tone. Now, what does that mean? It means if the children are bilingual, it depends on their culture, like the family traditions. Because in some families, in some cultures, it's like you need to respect your elders, so you cannot look in their eyes. You do not maintain eye contact because that's considered rude. But in some cultures, children are encouraged to talk back to their to like communicate, to converse with their adults. But in some cultures, it would be the complete opposite. They would not be encouraged to, like, they would be discouraged to interrupt elders while they're talking. It would be considered as talking back to them. and which is very rude. So all these things influence the communication and language development or communication style in children. Do you want to discuss something? Do you want to add something? Or
Well,
should I move
no,
forward?
I totally agree with what it says. Culture influence, social interaction, and all those things. I totally agree with it.
Okay, cool. I'll move forward then. So the role of caregivers in supporting development now. Responsive. So these are 4 points that are like that have been mentioned here, which is first is responsive interactions, how parents or caregivers responding to them, because when you respond, it encourages children to speak more. It's like a positive reinforcement. Modeling language, like because adults serve as language models, they need to demonstrate proper vocabulary, sentence structure, and pronunciation so that children can actually model them correctly and expand their language skills. Encouraging exploration would be when you provide children with new experiences and vocabulary, and this fosters their curiosity and their desire to communicate. So now, when children are exposed to a variety of situations and objects, of course, they're more likely to ask questions and engage in conversations. So when you seed in curiosity, that's when they can also like have a better chance to communicate because they are more curious. They want to speak. They will want to learn. They want to learn new words about what things are around them. That also helps them develop vocabulary and language. So everything's like very indirectly connected to each other. And then supporting turn taking. So as we just read about pragmatism, right? Pragmatic skills. It is you need to practice turn taking because it's not like you can. The child is just speaking and speaking, not letting the other person speak. And it's not like they are too shy to speak. We need to maintain a balance when they also speak, they allow the other person to speak as well. And that is when practicing tone taking during conversations kicks in. Like it teaches children to listen, respond, and wait for their turn, which are essential social skills for effective communication. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the language development and cognitive skills now. Memory and vocabulary. So as children's memory improves, of course they can retain and recall more words, which helps build vocabulary. So it's a chain reaction now. So memory plays a key role in learning and using new words. So understanding rules of language. Children learn to apply rules of grammar, which is syntax, and word meaning, which is semantics, as we discussed in the beginning. And these help them form coherent sentences. Now they begin to understand concepts like plurals, verb conjugation, and sentence order. So basically, grammar concepts. And then problem solving and critical thinking. Language allows children to articulate their thoughts, solve their problems by discussing ideas, exploring solutions, and expressing needs. So these skills become more advanced as language complexity increases. So as you can see, if they are discussing their ideas, they are exploring solutions, they're expressing needs, this helps them articulate their thoughts and solve problems. So indirectly, it leads to problem solving in children as well. Then because if you think about it, whenever you want to solve a problem, you would think in a language in your head, right? Even if you're not saying it out loud. So you need language to discuss ideas or maybe explore solutions. Just to articulate your thoughts, you need language. Then is the narrative skills. Now, language development includes storytelling, which enhances cognitive skills by requiring children to sequence events and understand cause and effect. These skills are important for academic readiness and social interaction. We discussed that during our last during the last class as well. That getting involved in storytelling it enhances your cognitive skills because you're sequencing events. Children get to know the cause and effect relationship between events, and this helps you develop your cognitive skills. Now these are important because now is when children would also start getting prepared for school. They need it for you know as Aristotle said, humans are social animals. You would need people around you. So they develop their language for academic readiness to like flourish well in school and also to like interact socially. That is how
Yeah.
language development and cognitive skills are interrelated. Okay.
Yes.
So the challenges and barriers in language development. So speech and language disorders. Now, if you have conditions such as dyslexia, or you stutter, or there's a language delay, this can impact a child's ability to learn and use language. Of course, like it's very evidently visible that if they have any conditions, it would like delay their learning and using the language. Now, how we can intervene? It is early intervention and support are critical for helping children overcome these challenges. Because if they are intervened early on, it's like prevention is better than cure. They wouldn't have to like live with it, or they wouldn't have to, they wouldn't be used to or habitualized to something like this. We can intervene early and provide them support. If we can provide them support early on, it can actually help them overcome these challenges that they face during their age. Then limited language exposure. So children who are not exposed to rich language environments may experience slower language development because they have fewer opportunities to hear, practice, and understand language. Now, social or emotional factors. So children experiencing stress or trauma may find it challenging to develop language skills. So that's why emotional support and a safe environment are essential for healthy language development. Now, cultural and linguistic diversity. Bilingual children may develop language differently as they learn to differentiate between languages. However, bilingualism can positively impact cognitive flexibility and executive functioning over time. So, I read a research somewhere that children who speak more languages don't it like directly impacts their cognitive functioning, because language learning is also when you're learning new things, you're learning new words, you're like learning grammar structures and switching between languages, using the correct sentences, knowing when to use things. That is when your cognitive, thinking also comes into play. That has a positive impact on that as well. But of course, now if they may develop language differently, and because they have to, it's a barrier and a challenge to language development because they have to differentiate between languages. So they might learn a language differently. They might speak like combine two languages and speak, which is like not correct to interact with people who only speak one language. So it can be a challenge and a barrier when they're speaking. Okay.
Yeah. But speaking more than one language is a skill, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I
And
mentioned that
and
before.
it
Yeah.
does help in with your cognitive skills. It does help. I also believe the children who knows more than one language, they I found them usually more intelligent.
Yeah, definitely. And in fact, when you're young, you have so much capacity to learn. Children have capacity to learn up to 6 languages when they're young. When you grow old, it's like hard to learn another language.
Exactly.
But if they're
Yeah.
young, that's why it's like important for them to learn language early on so that they can, ingrain all these languages, because they can learn 6 languages. Now, if you try to learn languages, it would be hard for us. It's not like we
It
cannot,
would be hard.
but it would be
Yeah.
very hard. Yeah.
That's what they say, the children are like sponge. They can
Yeah.
absorb as much, like whatever you tell them, they can absorb everything.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important for children to learn languages like so
Yeah,
early
true.
on, rather than they start later in stage. It takes adults time to learn a language, and it like becomes harder for them. But then
Yeah.
again, if you're learning language when you're a kid, you might confuse words or sometimes that. But yeah, that's how it's important that people don't like children do not like mix languages up, but actually know the difference between switching when to switch.
Yeah. But that's all right. Even if they get confused, they will get confused for a shorter time.
Yeah,
But
compared to
for
adults.
long
Yeah,
run, they will know more languages.
definitely. And it would also like help them like develop their skills. It's a good skill to have.
Yeah, true, true.
Yeah, it's a good convo. Okay, so moving on. So promoting communication and language development in different settings. So in home environment, families can create language-rich environments by talking, reading, and playing with children. This would encourage vocabulary expansion and it would develop confidence in their speaking. As for early childhood education, educators can foster language development by engaging children in group discussions, storytelling and songs, and small group activities. can encourage participation and also provide individual attention. That's why small group activities are something that's very much encouraged. Then community programs, libraries, playgroups, and storytelling sessions provide social and language interaction opportunities, which are important for children's language development and social skills. So this is when we summarize the table for communication and language development. It's everything that we've covered so far and the conclusion. So in summary, language and communication development are complex processes, okay, which are influenced by various stages, factors, and supportive interactions that we just talked about. And then understanding and promoting this development is crucial for children's overall growth because it enables them to communicate effectively and engage meaningfully with the world around them. Yeah, so we're done with one part of it. Anything you want to discuss about that, or we should move forward? Anything you want to do?
Oh. Now we should move forward.
Okay. So now we'll discuss the key components of language. We have discussed these terms, but we will discuss them in detail now. So understanding the key components of language is essential. Why? To recognize how children learn, to communicate effectively. Now, each component plays a specific role in helping children understand, produce, and use language in a meaningful way. So what are the key components of language? Phonology, okay? Phonology is the study of the sound system of a language, which includes the sounds, which are also referred as phonemes, that are distinctive in each language and the rules for combining these sounds. So as we just talked about, bat and pat. Their phonology is nothing but the study of sound system. Now, what role it plays in language development? Phonological skills are among the first that children develop as they begin to recognize and produce sounds. They coo, they babbles, they just making sounds first, okay? So children learn to distinguish different phonemes. Example, the difference between B and P and understand sound patterns in words. So learning to differentiate between similar sounding words like bat and pat is a phonological skill. So rhyming games and songs also help reinforce phonological awareness. And even what is that called? I am forgetting the word, but she says seashell. What's that called? Do you remember?
What thing?
These games when you have to, tongue twister type games, yeah.
Riddles.
Tongue
Oh,
twisters,
tongue
yeah.
twisters,
What
yeah.
did you say? Sorry.
No, I said riddles.
Yeah, I think tongue twisters. Yeah, but these can help them like develop language as well, like their phonological skills, because they can now differentiate between different sound patterns. I used to love these games when I was a kid.
Yeah, it was funny. It was fun to play, to be honest.
Yeah, and it was sometimes hard to like speak them in one go, but it was a good game. Yeah. Now semantics. So semantics is nothing but the study of meaning in language, which focuses on how words, phrases, and sentences represent concepts, ideas, and relationships. So how we use. So if you want to talk about a concept, idea, or relationship, how are we using words, phrases, and sentences to talk about these concepts, ideas, and relationships? And that's how semantics is, which is the study of meaning in language. So the role it plays in language development is simple. It's done like understanding semantics allows children to attach meaning to words and helps them build their vocabulary. So now as they grow, children learn how words can have multiple meanings and understand context-based meanings as well. So for example, when we say bank, okay, so recognizing that bank can refer to a financial institution, like a financial bank, or the side of a river bank. It shows an understanding of semantic meaning. So learning words for colors, animals, and family members are examples of early semantic development. Okay? Now grammar. Grammar includes the rules and structures that govern how words are arranged into phrases and sentences. Okay, so it encompasses syntax, which is like sentence structure, and morphology, which is the structure of words. So morphology is how you structure the words, and then syntax is how you structure the sentences to form paragraphs. So the role grammar plays in language development is simple. It helps children understand how to organize their words to communicate ideas clearly and accurately. So when early grammar development takes place, it includes learning plurals, verb tenses, and proper word order in sentences. So example would be that knowing that she eats an apple is correct while she eat apple is not, shows an understanding of grammar. Now, as they develop, children also learn more complex grammatical structures like compound and complex sentences. So, of course, their grammatical skills also keep on improving as they grow up. Now, pragmatics. So, pragmatics involves the social rules and conventions that govern the use of language in different contexts. So, example would be understanding somebody else's tone, body language, and conversational rules like tone taking, as we just discussed before. So, the role pragmatics play in language development would be that it helps children know how to use language appropriately in various situations. They also learn how to greet people, ask questions, make requests, and respond to others based on social cues. So saying please and thank you and knowing when to interrupt or when not to interrupt is and you're also using polite language in formal situations are all examples of pragmatic skills. Understandable?
Yes,
Anything you want to add to this?
not really.
So this is the summary table of key components of language, and it's everything that we just discussed. And the conclusion would be that, in summary, each component, which are the four components we discussed: phonology, semantics, grammar, and pragmatics, they all contribute uniquely to language development. So together they can allow children to communicate effectively and understand both the structure and social aspects of language.
Hmm.
So the next is about the milestones. Milestones definitely does not have nothing much to explain, but we can obviously go through them together. Okay.
Yeah.
So understanding the milestones in language development from birth to 5 years would help us track a child's progress, and it can help us ensure that they are gaining the necessary language skills and they're developing on the right track, and if their development is on the right track. So these milestones are foundational for language learning, social interaction, and cognitive growth. If a child isn't, reaching these developmental milestones, there is some issue. That's when we know there's an issue. So below is a detailed explanation of language milestones with activities for each stage, followed by a summary table that we'll do in the end. So birth to 6 months, children engage in one-to-one conversations like talking and singing. So describing actions, example, I'm changing your diaper, and singing lullabies in a soothing tone. This exposure to language helps infants start recognizing familiar voices and tones. And also, like showing them black and white or high contrast picture books to stimulate visual attention and early language processing also helps infants focus better on high contrast images. So in birth to 6 months, what we need to focus on is making them familiarize voices and tones and helping them stimulating their visual attention and early language processing, which can be done by talking and singing and showing them high contrast books. Okay. Then
Yeah.
comes 6 to 12 months, which includes activities like peekaboo and interactive toys. So playing peekaboo would encourage social interaction and anticipation. Babies begin to understand the concept of object permanence, which would support their cognitive and language development. Then interactive toys, using toys that make sounds such as rattles or squeaky toys, and labeling sounds or simple words like what. This can help infants link sounds to objects and enhances auditory processing. That's when peekaboo and interactive toys help children's development.
Hmm.
Then
Yep.
12 to 18 months, simple songs with actions. Simple songs like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with hand movements. These combination of music and movement supports memory and word association. So, and pointing and naming. When you point to objects and name them, example would be look, a dog. And this labeling helps infants associate words with objects, and it facilitates their vocabulary growth. Now, 18 to 24 months. You can use picture books with labels. This would introduce books with clear images and labels of animals, household items, etc. And this would support vocabulary building by associating words with visuals. And then imitating animal sounds. When you encourage children to imitate animal sounds, like example, what does a cow say? How does a cow moo? This would help them with sound recognition and is a fun way to practice what? Vocalization. Okay?
Yep.
Then 2 to 3 years, then it includes storytelling and role playing. Storytelling would be creating simple stories together using props or drawings, and then it also encourages creativity, memory, and the use of new language or like vocabulary. And then role playing, engaging in pretend play with dolls, action figures, or stuffed animals. This kind of play encourages dialogue, turn taking, and imaginative thinking. So in 2 to 3 years, if you practice storytelling or role playing, this can help them and like enhance their creativity, their memory, help them learn new vocabulary. Also, playing like encourages dialogue, turn taking, which is pragmatic, and imaginative thinking. So now moving on to 3 to 4 years, if you like indulge in rhyming games, playing rhyming games, example, what rhymes with cat? It can help children recognize sound patterns, which are foundational for reading, and in a fun way as well.
Mm.
Also, cooking together, learn describing the steps involved in cooking or baking using descriptive words like stir, mix, and hot. This introduces sequencing. First of all, of course, it introduces new words, introduces new vocabulary, but then it also introduces sequencing. It also introduces helping them following instructions and new vocabulary, practical context. Because you must have noticed yourself that when you learn new words in a very practical context, rather than just cramming it from theory, it is different. You would prefer learning in a practical context because it would help, like you would remember longer. It would be in a long-term memory for like longer time. So that's why cooking together basic activities, related activities can also help children develop their language better.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you want to add something on that?
Not really. I think the children enjoy cooking activities. So because they enjoy, they have a enjoyable, fun time. That's why
Yeah,
it's it's easy to remember it,
agreed.
and that's how they learn new words through it. So they don't forget it easily because it was a good
Yeah,
time for them. They enjoyed
yeah,
the moment.
definitely. It also associates positive emotions with these things then. Because they're happy,
True.
they're enjoying, and then they also learn words. It just helps them remember better.
Yeah.
So now is the summary table of language development milestones, which we just discussed, and it's a good way of a good summary. You can refer to it later on. Then the conclusion. These milestones illustrate the progression of language skills from birth through age 5. It highlights activities that support each stage of development, and engaging children in these interactive activities can foster language growth, social skills, and cognitive development in a structured, enjoyable manner. Okay,
Yep.
now coming on to our next section. I believe this would be the final one. We're good on time today. So, analyzing age appropriate activities to stimulate and aid language development. So, when you're stimulating and aiding language development in children, it requires selecting age appropriate activities that would engage them at their current developmental stage. So these activities help children acquire vocabulary, also helps them improve comprehension, helps them practice pronunciation, and also helps them develop conversational skills. So here we have an analysis of effective activities for different age groups that would focus on how they support language development at each stage. So first would be birth to 6 months. Talking and singing. Now speaking to infants in a soothing tone and singing lullabies helps them become familiar with language sounds and rhythms. It would also strengthen the bond between caregiver and child, so it also helps them form an attachment, which is very important for children. So activity details can be like engaging in face-to-face interactions, maintaining eye contact, and using penalties, which is exaggerated intonation, what we discussed last time in the last class. It can help capture their attention, So language benefits. Now it helps build auditory skills, encourages sound recognition, and helps infants become accustomed to the natural flow of language. Okay.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
6 to 12 months, you can have peekaboo and pat a cake. So these simple games like peekaboo and pat a cake, they introduce turn taking and encourage social interaction, which is foundational for conversational skills. So basically, pragmatic skills. Now, so as for the details, you use hand movements and simple words, pausing to let the child respond with a smile, babble, or gesture. Now, the benefits in language would be that it supports understanding of tone taking, anticipation, and social cues, which are essential for conversation. Now, interactive toys, if these toys that make sounds such as rattles, bells, and squeaky toys, they're very engaging for this age group. Shake a rattle or press a squeaky toy while naming the sound or object, such as look, rattle. Now you're actually naming sound, you're naming objects, you're labeling. This helps them remember sounds, label these sounds, also helps them label objects around them, and it can like help their vocabulary grow. So the language benefits would be that it helps babies make connections between objects and sounds, and it supports their auditory discrimination and early vocabulary. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Then 12 to 18 months. So when you point and name, caregivers like when you point and name objects, you encourage the child to repeat it. Now this activity reinforces vocabulary growth. So what we do during this activity is during play or while reading picture books, caregivers can point to familiar objects and say their names such as cat or ball. Now this helps with word association, of course, and supports vocabulary acquisition. So now simple songs with actions. You can sing songs like Itsy Bitsy Spider or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, paired with hand movements, which help children connect words with actions. So these are like singing songs with clear words and actions encourage the child to mimic the movements. Now, it reinforces word associations and builds memory skills while hand movements improve motor coordination. So it not only develops your language skill but also helps your memory to improve and your motor coordination, basically your motor skills.
Yeah.
So coming to 18 to 24 months, using picture books and imitating animal sounds. Simple picture books with animals or everyday items, they introduce new vocabulary and like mimicking animal sounds, they also encourage vocalization. So caregivers can point to animals in the book and ask, what does the cow say? And it can encourage the child to answer them. So it helps build vocabulary, encourages expressive sounds, and teaches children to make connections between images and words. The next
Mm.
activity could be role playing and pretend play. So encouraging simple role play activities such as feeding a doll or pushing a toy car to support narrative skills. This activity details can be, you provide dolls or cars and ask questions like, where is the baby going? Or what does the car say? So this supports expressive language. They are expressing themselves. This would help them practice how to express themselves better, and it also helps them form sentences, and it introduces imaginative play. So when you indulge in imaginative play, it improves your creativity. So that's why imaginative play is very important.
Yeah.
The next is 2 to 3 years. Storytelling and picture books with clear labels. We discussed about this, that how storytelling would help children learn sentence structure and vocabulary, and the labeled picture books help with word recognition. So reading simple stories or describing pictures in books, asking questions like, what is happening here? It can encourage responses. And what it would do is help build vocabulary, of course. It would also support sequencing and develops understanding of narrative structures. So the next activity is rhyming games and songs. Rhyming songs or games introduce children to phonological awareness, which is important for literacy skills. Now, using rhyming words or phrases like "what rhymes with cat" or singing rhyming songs, it will help with phonemic awareness, sound recognition, and prepares children for reading skills. So it's more about listening and pronouncing the sounds correctly, or um, getting more aware about your phonemes around you. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 to 4 years is when you'll be cooking together. You describe actions while cooking, such as mix, pour or stir, and this introduces children to sequence words and introduces them to action vocabulary. So you involve the child in cooking by narrating each step and encouraging them to repeat words. It would enhance vocabulary, it would teach sequencing and strengthen the understanding of cause and effect relationships. As for guessing games, games like I Spy or Guess the Word encourage children to think descriptively and build comprehension. So you describe an object's features and let the child guess, such as I spy something that is round and red. It would help build descriptive language, like the child's comprehension, and encourages their critical thinking. Okay?
Yeah.
Scavenger hunting for 4 to 5 years would get like giving them clues for finding items would be example would be find something that starts with B. So this would help children practice listening, vocabulary, and cognitive skills. So the activity
Mm.
details would be to create a list of items for children to find and give descriptive hints for each item. This encourages what vocabulary expansion, one thing, listening skills second, and also introduces concepts like initial sounds and categories. One next activity and the final activity would be simple debates or conversations. So, engaging children in basic discussions or topics like favorite animals or colors. This practice teaches them to articulate thoughts and practice turn taking. So, asking open ended questions like, why do you like dogs? Encouraging the child to express their reasons. This would develop expressing language, develop expressive language, tone taking, reasoning, and conversational skills. Okay,
Yes.
so now we have the summary table covering everything that we've discussed so far. You can have a look at it later. Then is the conclusion, which is these age appropriate activities provide a structured yet flexible approach for what? To enhance language development across stages, which can foster an engaging environment that supports communication, cognitive skills, and social interactions. Each activity, which is tailored to the child's current capabilities, ensures they are challenged and motivated to grow in their language skills. Because, now we'll talk about Vygotsky's concept again. Like they've mentioned that each activity is tailored to the child's current capabilities. You need to see how capable the child is. At the same time, you need to challenge them to help improve on themselves. Because if you just keep them on the same level, they will never grow. But you cannot also give them an activity which is far beyond their level. So you need to provide a very appropriate amount of activity that can challenge and motivate them to grow in their language skills. Make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. You cannot give, if you give a child appropriate, age appropriate activity, you don't have the very much high expectations from a child then.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
even if the child is not really good at it, but it's an age appropriate activity, so that's fine.
Definitely.
But if you give, like, if a child is 4-year old and you give him a like a 7 to 8 year age appropriate activity, then your
Yeah,
expectations will be higher, but you don't
definitely.
realize that you are wrong here. You are giving the wrong age appropriate activities. So yeah, it is important to give age appropriate activities, so you don't get disappointed in the end. and
Definitely.
the,
And even the child will be
and
demotivated in the end that they are not able to
exactly.
do things. This would just directly impact their self esteem.
Yes, true, true. Because when you are young, winning is everything for you. You
Yeah,
don't, even children, they don't understand difference between winning and losing. We always encourage them and tell them it's all right if you lose, it's okay. But
definitely.
they start looking face, they start crying because they think winning is everything.
Definitely. Very well said on that. It's very important to, give them these things so that because if you look from their perspective, they just need to win. If they do not
Yeah.
win, they'll start crying, beating the floor, or just lying down on the
Yeah.
ground that, they've lost something. That's why it is also important to just challenge them, but providing them with enough challenge so that they'll be able to do that. But also they can
Exactly.
unlock something new in themselves, move on to the next stage.
True. Yeah.
Make sense? It was a very good
Yeah.
conversation though. I wish we had more
And
time. We could have discussed so much. But here are the references, and yeah, I think yeah, we're done.
Thank you so
well,
much for today's class, Sukhnur. It
no
was really
problem.
nice having a
Yeah.
lesson with you again. And
Yeah.
see you next week.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Have a good appointment. Have a lovely day. Thank you for attending.
You
It's
too.
always
Thank you.
lovely to
Take
have
care.
conversations. Yeah. Thank you. Take
Same. I
care.
feel the same. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.